What if I told you there was an AI model that could read an entire book, understand a 500-page report, and remember almost everything in it? Would you switch from ChatGPT or Claude?
Or is this just another AI model trying to grab headlines?
Today, we're looking at Moonshot AI, one of China's fastest growing AI companies, and its latest model, Kimi K2, will explain where it beats ChatGPT and Claude, where it falls short, and which businesses should actually be using it. How exciting. Welcome back to the AI and Marketing Podcast for local businesses, the show that gives you practical, proven marketing advice to help you grow your business right here in the UK. My name's Adam. I'm a best-selling Amazon published author, soon to be audiobook published author, AI enthusiast, AI presenter, and founder of www.websitedesigners.london. We've helped businesses generate tens of millions of pounds online through smarter design and marketing.
I'm Josh. I'm the founder of ImproveMySearchRanking.com, an SEO and AI search agency based in London and 3-time winners of the UK Search Awards. Over the past 10 years, we've worked with well over 1,000 businesses, helping them generate in excess of £200 million in sales.
So, what is Moonshot AI? This might be the first time you've ever heard of that phrase or name. Well, most people have heard of OpenAI and ChatGPT. Most people have heard of Anthropic and Claude. Far fewer have heard of Moonshot AI and Kimi. It's become one of the fastest AI growing companies in the world, and it's been in the news a lot recently, and this is why we're talking about it today. Its flagship assistant, or kind of model, if you like, is called Kimi, K-I-M-I, and its latest flagship model is Kimi K2, Kimi, K-I-M-I, and then the letter K and the number 2. The company has become famous because it focused on one thing that a lot of other competitors haven't. One of those things is very long documents, but also the fact that it's open source. So we'll talk a bit about that later.
I think there's also some controversy over the fact that American AI companies feel that they have trained their model on theirs and kind of stolen their progress. But yeah, so while most AI models used to forget almost everything after you've done a few prompts, Kimi was built instead to understand hundreds of pages all at once and kind of record it in its memory. So this will immediately make it more popular with people who are lawyers or researchers or consultants, software developers, financial analysts, anyone who's working with huge amounts of information.
Absolutely. So just to kind of give you some perspective and some numbers here. Now, I just used Kimi K2 and asked it the question of what's the difference between ChatGPT, Claude, and Kimi K2. And we've done that the same. We've done the same thing with ChatGPT as well, just for balance here now. Just to kind of give you some numbers here. So where we talk about Kimi K2's memory for those long conversations, and that's where Kimi kind of made its name and its unique selling point. So if we just give you a few numbers here, Kimi can hold about 1 million tokens in its working memories, roughly equivalent to several novels or massive code bases. Early versions could handle up to 2 million Chinese characters in one sitting. If we look at that 1 million token metric and benchmark it to Claude and ChatGPT, and bearing in mind that's 1 million is roughly equivalent to several novels, Claude offers up to 200,000 tokens on the same tiers, and ChatGPT 4.0 model handles up to 128,000 tokens. So there's a huge difference. So in essence, all three can read long reports, but Kimi was really designed from the ground up to swallow kind of these larger documents, entire books, and huge legal contracts without really struggling. So that's kind of example and a benchmark for you. We'll also talk about its open kind of source naturing shortly as well, and we'll give you some kind of great analogies. But before we do that, it's very useful to ask it to upload, if you wanted to upload your employee handbook, 12 months of meeting notes, for example, a 300-page contract, maybe your marketing strategy, some competitor notes, and then asking questions just in that chat with all that information, which arguably ChatGPT really struggles, sometimes gets a bit slow and laggy. So you've got to start a new chat. And same with Claude, it uses much more tokens when you do that.
Another area where Moonshot's AI is genuinely excellent is in kind of researching. And I found this personal example recently where I was using Claude. I was uploading various documents about buying a house and surveys and trying to look at questions we had to go back to solicitor on. And I could only upload, I think, 11 different PDFs and up to 200 images within those PDFs, and it was stopping me from being able to do everything I wanted, and it was not allowing me to do the research that I wanted. Whereas Kimi is designed to help you do just that. So if you're comparing dozens of documents, summarizing reports, finding inconsistencies, trying to extract some key information or questions or information you need, Moonshot is an extremely impressive AI solution to use. So rather than giving just generic summaries, it often maintains more context across larger data sets than many competing models.
Fantastic. So if we talk about coding, so we've talked about the massive, what they call the context window, i.e. uploading lots of data and remembering, and so you can then ask questions about that. Josh just talked about research. And point number 3 is about coding. So I appreciate this doesn't really apply to everybody, but just useful to know. Developers have increasingly become interested in Kimi K2 because it performs really well. It's become surprisingly good at writing code, and in some tests it's beaten Claude. And it's got this own kind of tool called Kimi Code, which is a tool for programmers that really does compete with Claude's coding assistant. And it's cheap enough so developers don't have to kind of think about, gosh, I'm using lots of tokens, which then drives your bills when experimenting as well. Now, before we move on to comparing it to ChatGPT and Claude, I just want to discuss one thing, which is its open source nature. So I just want to give this analogy in regarding the kind of open source elements. Think about it like this, right? So OpenAI, ChatGPT's OpenAI, and Anthropic's Claude, and OpenAI's ChatGPT are like Tesla and Apple. They build the car, they own the design, and you can only use it through their app or service. You can't take the engine out and put it in your own car, right? Whereas Moonshot AI's Kimi is more like a company that not only sells you the car, but hands you the full blueprint and says, here, build it yourself if you want to. So essentially, it's what they call open source. So just breaking this down a little more, Moonshot publishes the actual brain of their AI, the model weights, which are essentially the billions of learned connections to make their AI as smart as it is today. Anyone can download that, run it on their own service, modify them. I appreciate this is more technical than most users will need, but it's much more transparent. They can build their own apps on top of it without asking Moonshot for permission. And you can literally download and host it yourself, whereas Claude and ChatGPT are what they call closed source. You can only talk to them through apps and APIs and connectors that OpenAI and Anthropic control. So the brain stays on their computers. You can rent access, but you can never own or see the engine. So that matters from a privacy, from a cost, customization, reliability, and ease of use perspective. Both, better and worse. For example, it's going to be more technical because it's more. If you want to host yourself, it's going to be more technical, but reliability, if Moonshot goes bust or changes its terms, you still have that model. From a customization perspective, the tech team can fine tune it. From a cost perspective, once you have it running, there's no kind of per message fees. API that Kimi's AI is significantly cheaper, and privacy, from a privacy perspective, you can run it on your own computer. It doesn't actually leave the building. Whereas conversations for the rest of Claude and ChatGPT can sit on their servers. So, look, appreciate I've talked a lot about this whole segment about open source and closed source, but I think that's quite telling as well. And to your point, Josh, around the whole claim that Anthropic and OpenAI have of Moonshot AI being trained on their data, but also it's almost quite controversial. It's a Chinese-owned company being more transparent, one could argue, versus, you made that point earlier.
Yeah, it's very interesting how it's almost seems the wrong way around, where the US companies are closed behind doors, not allowing anyone to see the insides, whereas the Chinese companies are, almost all the Chinese AI companies, as I understand, are open source. I do wonder if there's some sort of geopolitical kind of war here, where maybe China wants the rest of the world to catch up with the US, and therefore they're giving away all the information.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, so that's all. Yeah, really, really interesting stuff. But where does ChatGPT and Claude, where do these other American AIs still perform superiorly compared to Kimi K2? And in my opinion, ChatGPT, I still use it frequently. I use Claude frequently. I don't really use Kimi. It's something I've tested once, and I think I'll probably start using it a bit more as we move forward. But ChatGPT is probably the most well-rounded assistant. It can do all sorts of things. I think it's probably the best at image generation.
100%.
It's really fantastic at doing that.
Although I think you use Google a little now, but Gemini's kind of.
I feel Gemini's gone. Yeah, I think it's gone downhill recently. I don't know why. Maybe they've invested less into it. But ChatGPT seems to be the best for me. But yeah, writing, reasoning, images, analysis, research, custom GPTs, automations, coding. It can do a lot. It can do pretty much everything to a very high standards, all in one ecosystem.
Absolutely. And for most business owners, it's just easier. I think it has a bigger share of the market as well. And you don't need 5 different tools, right? You can ask a question, upload files, create images. In fact, let's talk about images. We actually use ChatGPT to generate images for our artwork for each episode, just so you guys know it's that good. Build automations, you can research competitors, write emails, create presentations, all in one platform. So it's just an all-rounded great tool, ChatGPT.
Claude still wins in various areas too. So in my opinion, what I use it for most actually is coding and building all sorts of tools and extras for clients' websites to help with their SEO. So we're building calculators, and we even tested building websites in the platform and launching those as tests, and they've worked really well. But Claude is also great for reporting. We can link Claude's API and is it MCP or to various other softwares as well. So for example, seranking.com, where we can then, or data for SEO, and we can kind of pull information about our clients' performance and put that into a report, so we can find out how many keywords they have on page 1 of Google and various interesting information like that.
Can I just pause and just explain MCP, Model Context Protocol? Essentially, in lay terms, it's a way of connecting software systems together. So you talked about SE ranking, was it? That's a software tool connecting to Claude to be able to use those capabilities together. That's all MCPs and APIs are.
Exactly. So Claude is great at doing that. It can also be useful for strategizing, making proposals, looking at and creating policies, creating business plans. Claude often produces exceptionally well-written natural language as well. And yeah, many people find it particularly good at careful reasoning, editing, refining ideas, and structured thinking.
Fantastic. Whenever we're writing long formal content or improving complicated documents, Claude, I think is one of our favorites. Now, I do want to just, for argument's sake and for balance, if you ask Kimi K2 what the difference is between each one, it does say ChatGPT is better at a general everything. But its weak spot is it's how generic it might feel. And the safety filter sometimes frustrate those power users. Claude it says it's great at the careful analysis, the nuanced writing, the long form reasoning and the coding, what we just talked about. But it can be overly cautious and refuse harmless requests sometimes. Kimi K2, it says it's better at reading massive documents, coding, math, and price sensitive tasks, but it's less polished as a consumer experience, and its safety guardrails can vary by host. So that's just a nice kind of balanced way of just giving you what Kimi K2 thinks of Kimi K2, right? But it's very much in line to what we think as well. So there's no nothing to really shout about too much there. So the kind of $1 million question you might be asking, so for my business, what should I use? Which AI should you use for your business? And here's the kind of thing that people sometimes get slightly wrong or kind of at a whirlwind with. They assume that everything must be everything must be done in one AI tool and there must be one AI rule to them all, but there isn't. Think of them like employees. They all have different strengths, right?
Exactly. So here's how we'd use them. So ChatGPT as a daily business assistant, helping with marketing tasks, brainstorming, emails, images, automations, and general productivity.
For Claude, better for more detailed, nuanced writing, editing, thinking, if you want to kind of bounce some ideas off it, report generation, maybe some strategic help, and complex documents.
And then Moonshot AI, this will be great for large-scale research due to the big context window, huge document analysis for the same reason, coding, long technical projects, and academic work.
So just to give you an example, I use ChatGPT for quick, everyday answers that aren't very complex in nature, maybe. And I use Claude for report generations at times, some coding to build tools. And I also use it for longer writing pieces. I also have started to use Claude sometimes for productivity. So one thing I love about Claude is I was going to say I'm lazy, not lazy. I like to be efficient, right? So when I have, for example, I've started learning, I want to brush up on my language skills. I'm brushing up on my Turkish skills at the moment. I went on to Preply, which is some sort of language learning course, or kind of where you can hire a tutor. And I booked 4 sessions in, and I want to put that in my calendar, and I just can't be bothered to do it 4 times. So I just uploaded a screenshot of my bookings with the said tutor. Popped it into Claude, and I said, add it into my calendar. And in seconds, it added to my calendar. So just an example of how I'm beginning to use Claude a little more for the everyday thing. And then Moonshot, again, to Josh's point, I don't use it as much. I probably will start looking at it a little more, but it's probably a bit more kind of geared to the more technical user for now. So what about SEO and marketing? Well, most local businesses don't need Moonshot every day, like I just said. But if you're running, for example, a plumbing company, a baker, dental practice, a law firm, a state agency, ChatGPT will probably cover 95% of what you need. I'd maybe say 70% of what you need actually in Claude, 30%, especially if you're kind of a law firm.
Mm-hmm. Where Moonshot becomes interesting is if your business handles huge amounts of information. So as you just alluded to, kind of legal firms, accountants, engineering firms, architects, software companies, financial institutions, universities. So if you have a lot of really lengthy, long documents to run through, Moonshot and Claude can be a genuine productivity tool.
Just be careful of your own internal policies that you've created, because again, not to bring politics into it, one is a Chinese open source company versus kind of US based organizations.
I saw something, there's an online influencer called Grant Cardone, I believe his name is.
Yeah,
and he's been taken to court. I don't know why, I just saw a clip this morning, and it seems he was being interrogated about had he uploaded any information relating to this case into any AI tools. And it seemed like that they were trying to get him to say yes to cause him a problem, basically, because he uploaded that information into such a place. There was also a story recently, I believe it was Claude, where if you had shared a Claude AI conversation with somebody else, it was being published live and it's being found in Google, and people could find out your chat history. So with all the AI tools, you do need to be a bit careful.
And just on that, I think the reason why that was published online is because there is on Claude there's a share button, or was it Claude or was it?
I think it was Claude, but I can't remember.
So one of these it was either Claude or ChatGPT. I think the user had clicked the share button, so you can share the chat with somebody, and I think they clicked it and maybe shared it somewhere, or when they clicked it, perhaps maybe that was one of the things that then said, oh, well, it's now a public URL, so anyone can view it, and it was stored in their servers, or maybe they shared it with someone and it ended up somewhere else. So again, to Josh's point, be careful. So should you replace ChatGPT? Is the question, right? Probably not. Use the right tool for the right task. We switch between AI models, like we just explained, but based on what we're trying to achieve. The best AI users aren't just going to stick to one. You've got to be careful and not just be more thoughtful. You need to just be focused on getting the best result, as opposed to just being loyal and this is it. Just be curious.
And that's one of the biggest productivity skills actually to have nowadays, is to actually know what model to use and when, rather than expecting one just to do everything for you.
Absolutely. So, key takeaways here. If you remember 4 things from today's episode, number 1, Moonshot AI specializes in understanding very large amounts of information. Number 2, ChatGPT remains the best all-round business assistant for most people. Claude is fantastic at writing, editing, and strategic thinking. And number 4, the smartest businesses and users use multiple AI tools depending on the task.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Every week we will break down the latest developments in AI and digital marketing into practical advice that local businesses can actually use.
Thank you very much for listening. And if you'd like to help, if you'd like to use AI to help grow your business, improve your marketing, or prepare for the next future of search, do give us a bell. We'd love to help you. But until next time, thank you for listening.